hotfix happening. Server's returning 2 hours afterwards, so it should be up pretty soon here. If it's not up already, right? I saw there was a couple of things. So main idea here is there's a slight cleric nerf, a slight druid nerf, audible anyway. A little bit of a return for warlock demon form, which is good. Probably my only criticism for what warlock demon form was. It's the inventory, so it can't be interacted with when the druid is in animal form. So you could loot something, chest, body, whatever, and then turn into a rat so that you could like hide inside their body but still get the inventory items, which didn't make a whole lot of sense. It was kind of troll. Fixed an issue where cooldown wasn't activated if the warlock jumped while channeling Dark Offering, which meant that the warlock could basically have 100% uptime of 50% damage bonus for both magical and physical, which was kind of OP. Fixed an issue where certain item holders that could float in the air, such as arrows, had a blocking effect, which is also interesting. Fixed an issue where some boss monsters couldn't break down the Pavis. So this was most common on the Wyvern fight. People could put down a Pavis and then hide behind it. It seems like that's going to be something that you can't do anymore. Fixed an issue where the Yeti could attack 4 times instantly. Now, I never saw that one, but I kind of wish I had, because that would have been amazing. Fixed an issue where the visual effect wasn't displayed when escaping through a portal. Continuing to fix areas that the druid rat form should not be able to access. I think this is more about like falling through the floor in places like GC than it was getting into places, you know, for personal benefit or gain. Increased the interaction time required when interacting with an enemy player's corpse. Interacting with an ally's corpse remains the same as before. So this is for like guys ratting, basically. If you end up in a fight and then people have to retreat, they're trying to increase the amount of time it takes for somebody to like loot your body and scoot, which I think is kind of a cool idea. And I'm kind of down with the devs modifying the game to where it takes longer for people to do certain things, which opens them up for like counterplay or like being vulnerable to attack. Like, I'm cool with that. Like smart decisions kind of stuff, right? Okay, and then minor cleric nerf. Cleric's blunt weapon mastery physical attack bonus has been changed from 15% to 10%. I don't think that's going to do shit. Like at all. I don't think it's going to do a damn thing, because the problem with cleric is when they get buffed by a bard and have a shit ton of move speed, they have the capability of doing a bunch of damage, and they have tons of damage mitigation. Because, and I've said this before, the way that their perk and physical damage resistance combo works is they have, you know, let's say 70% PDR. The physical damage resistance applies first, and then perseverance applies after that. So if you're looking at maths, right? Let's say somebody hits you in the head for 70 damage, right? If that's reduced by 70%, right, times 0.7 is minus 49. So 70 minus 49 is 21 damage. And then it's minus 3, right? Because that's how perseverance works. So if you hit somebody in the head for 70, instead they get 18. That's kind of broke. You know what I mean? It's kind of broke. Now, obviously, that doesn't take into play like armor penetration stats or anything like that. But with the meta being what it is, you more or less have to stack armor pen to stand a chance against beating a cleric at all. And you need a lot of it. The only time I've seen a cleric really get folded is if you have a rogue with a bunch of armor pen and then weak point on top of it. It's the only time I see it go down. Because if you have guys like Solar Bear that are built for it, they have 70% PDR and then they have 200 health. Like before buffs, they have 200 health. So it gets kind of broke. And on top of that, then you have a perk that they run that if somebody gets hit with divine damage, they get slowed for movement speed. So then you have a smite cleric running around after people with a torch that's buffed by bard speed, that's hitting people for a fifth or more of their health pool with the amount of damage stacking that they have, and they don't have any movement speed slow. And then they're hitting people with divine damage, so it's slowing them so they can't get away. And it just, you know what I mean? Like, something's got to give there. It's just too much all at once. Okay, Warlock Demon Form health cost per second changed from 3% to 1.5%. I'm fine with this. I think that the Demon Form nerfs that happened, aside from the 3% per second change, were valid. I don't think that it really hurt Demon Form at all. It kind of brought it back in line, but I did think that the 3% per second was too much. So them changing this back to 1.5%, I think kind of allows people to still run Demon Form and have it still feel relatively comfortable. I don't know if people will run Demon Form nearly as much. I mean, Phantomize is very, very strong. Caster Warlock, I think, is kind of where it's at the moment, but this at least allows like plate locks to feel like they can do something. something. In current meta, though, I will say, in current meta, if you run a plate lock with Demon Form that has halfway decent PDR, and again, having a Bard in your team, you could be a debuff bot and then go Demon Form and start running people down with Spell Predation and Curse of Weakness. And I think that has a place. It's just a matter of like having a good team implement it. Druid Rad Form now squeaks at random intervals. So this is kind of like an audible nerf to Druid and how Rat Form works. Used to be that you could just like sit as a rat in a corner. You wouldn't make any noise unless you were like running or jumping. Now it's obviously going to be something where you're going to give audio cues to people. You can't just like hide in corners. Lycan's Vigor bonus has been increased from 3 to 4 and a headshot damage reduction has been added by 10%. So you have 10% headshot damage reduction and 4 Vigor for the Lycan skin. I still don't think that's going to be good enough when you start looking at helmets and like the kind of stats that they carry. But, you know, this is like an alternative for Lizard, I guess, basically. Instead of getting armor, you're going to have health. Armor pen of Rondo Dagger and Stiletto Dagger changed from 10 to 5%. So I don't know why they went and nerfed this. I think, honestly, like for me, instead of like plus damage stuff, I think that they should just do more armor penetration stuff. Because armor pen, the way that the damage works with armor pen, the more armor somebody has, the more effective armor pen is. If they have less armor, then armor pen isn't really doing much for the person that they're targeting. I think that spell and armor or magic and armor penetration is a more valuable stat to lean into for like future meta stuff than giving people just like flat plus damage. Spellbook, Crystal Ball, and Wizard Staff now have 5, 10, and 15% magic pen respectively. See, I dig this. See, I think this is good. This is how you end up kind of bringing wizards and casters into the fray a little bit. 10% on Crystal Ball actually starts making people maybe want to run a Crystal Ball a little bit. I'm down with this, especially considering like, you know, Spellbook of all of them has the least movement speed penalty and a fast cast animation. Crystal Ball's about the same speed, but has a much has an increased movement speed penalty. So that giving it a 10% pen bonus might actually make people want to run it. Wizard Staff with a 15% magic pen is going to really help like the whole staff bonk thing even more. You can actually end up seeing like a lot more Ignite Staff wizards hitting people in the face with 15% magic pen. That's going to hurt. That's going to hurt. Increase the damage of longbows by 1. I still don't know if that's going to be enough for people to want to run longbow, but yeah. Slightly lowered the amount of magic resistance earned per will within the sweet spot of the curve, so they're nerfing magic resistance a little bit. Slightly lowered the amount of PDR earned per armor rating with the upper sweet spot of the curve. Okay, so again, a little bit of a nerf on PDR. I don't think it's going to be enough, but unique artifact grade weapons will now have better primary attributes than their legendary counterparts. So they're giving damage and stats back to unique weapons, named weapons, and unique artifact items give an additional random modifier. So now we're going to have another a fix roll on them as well. They're basically putting the old artifacts back in the game. Non-artifact unique items now drop again in the game. So there you go. So that's interesting because basically like at the start of the wipe, they took out the artifact quality gear that you could get that wasn't a weapon. And then they slightly nerfed the artifact named weapons so that they were legendary quality, but it still had the affixes because they were trying to do a little stat squish so that there wasn't as much gear disparity. Now they're putting artifact uniques back in the game. So, or non-unique items, I guess I should say. Artifact quality, but non-unique. So you can get an artifact quality ring and pants and shit again, which is going to have an extra affix on it and better stats. So yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. Like gear disparity is definitely going to be back on the menu because you're going to see guys like running uniques again. But, you know, it is what it is, I guess. We'll see how it plays out. Volumetric fog in the ice cavern has been temporarily removed for improvements. I wonder if they were seeing, like, frame rate issues. Interesting. Goblin Merchant now gives a 25% discount at 75 affinity and a 50% discount at 150 affinity when selling back items through the dungeon recovery system. So insurance gets a discount with the more Goblin Merchant quests you do. This is actually a pretty big benefit when you see items that you're getting back that are like 300, 400 gold, depending on like the quality of them. Making a 300 gold item, like on a normal return, a 150 gold purchase, like rebuy on insurance is actually kind of huge. Improved visibility of the search button in Marketplace. All right, let's see. This week's hotfix introduces minor balance changes in the reintroduction of the unique grade items to the item pool to make loot a little more enticing for high roller. We've introduced an interaction time when looting an opposing player's corpse to make scavenging during battle a bit riskier of an endeavor. We are nearing completion of the new matchmaking system that will assist in creating better sessions for everyone. In the meantime, we'll continue to experiment with various gear-based matchmaking pools as a stopgap measure. We thank you for your support and see you in the dungeons. Okay, all right. Well, they're almost done with matchmaking. matchmaking, which is good because I'm tired of people putting their grubby hands on me, man. Like, stop looking at my gear. What the hell? Do you think the magic pen is going to scale with rarity? No. If they said it scaled with rarity, they would have said something. So remember how we were talking the other day about how it seemed like they added a gear queue for from 25 to 124? That was kind of an interesting one because SDF did not respond to that, by the way. I think they're trying to keep them close to the vest when they add and change and modify what the GBMM breaks are. So if they're experimenting with various gear-based matchmaking pools as stopgap measures, how many pools do you get, and in what brackets are you getting them? Because that would start to explain why people aren't feeling like there's a whole lot of people gaming with you when there's 40 and 50,000 concurrent players. You know, at nearly any point during the day, you see like 35 to 50K. But a lot of people are complaining that they're not noticing anybody in the games with them. So then you start to have to wonder, how many breaks are there? And it's hard to quantify because if they keep changing it, like let's say they're changing it on like a weekly basis, if that's what they're doing and they're just not saying nothing, then it's kind of tough to tell whether or not you're going to be, you know, if you're in a certain bracket with people or not, or you know what I mean? Can uniques only drop at a boss? There's a 1% chance for uniques to drop from high roller bosses. High roller bosses. There are other places that uniques drop, but they're typically behind key doors. Somebody said that the game's back up.